Hey guys, so today we're continuing the History, Flaws, and Cancelled series, but for the first time we have an episode on a submodel that was cancelled, and not the car itself. So we're looking at the Chrysler 300 SRT8, which is always a popular topic as many of us in North America wonder what happened to it, and why we don't have it available for sale in the US and Canada. As for this series, I'm making my way through many of the Mopar cars, so we've already covered lots of Dodge, Chrysler, and Jeep products already. So let's get started for the Chrysler 300 SRT8. If you're new to these types of videos, the first part focuses on looking back at the history of the car and all the details and specs, and then we jump to talking about the events that led to the car being cancelled and any flaws that it had. The Chrysler 300 SRT8 in North America lived through 2 generations and 9 model years from 2005 to 2010 and 2012 to 2014. So we begin back in 2003. The 300 was first unveiled as a concept at the 2003 New York International Auto Show, and by January of 2004, production had begun for the 2005 model year. The 300 was a modern interpretation of the Chrysler 300 letter series vehicles that were built from 1955 to 1965, specifically the C300. So after the C300 in 1955, each subsequent model was given the next letter all the way to the 1965 300L, and then they were discontinued after that. So these were high-performance luxury cars, and some people consider them to be muscle car ancestors. Chrysler brought back the 300 nameplate for the 300M sedan from 1999 to 2004, which was the predecessor and was built on the Chrysler LH platform. There were also various other LH sedans, all replaced by the rear-wheel drive Chrysler LX platform, starting in 2005 with the Chrysler 300 and the Dodge Magnum. The 300 SRT8 would be available in various markets across the world, including Europe, Australia, and Japan, where the 300 would be sold as a 5-door station wagon that was called the 300C Touring, which was basically their version of our Dodge Magnum wagon. So looking at the production 300, we'll start with the first gen from 2005 to 2010, and there were various trim levels including Base, Touring, Limited, 300C, and of course SRT8. Of course we're only focusing on that SRT8 for this video. So the SRT8 was available each year as the most expensive model, beginning at $39,370 for 2005, and rising up to $44,865 by 2010. When looking at the inflation, that's roughly $50,000 to $53,000 in today's dollars, so the pricing was pretty good value at the time. Taking a deeper look at the exterior, the 300 had bold and dramatic styling. It had a long wheelbase of 120 inches, and it visually exuded a sense of both luxury and power. It respects the design of the original 300s from the past, but it does add some modern pieces as well. That consists of the long hood, very large grille, low roofline, and short deck. They used a waffle pattern grille for 2005 to 2008, and then they switched to a black mesh grille for 2009 and 2010. Remarkably, the 300 is somehow able to appeal to both younger and older people, and there are many enthusiasts of this car from all ages, which is quite uncommon. Looking at that SRT8, it's easily the coolest looking of all the 300s, and it has many unique features. There are body color front and rear bumper inserts, mirrors, and door handles, which the other models don't get. Some modifications were added specifically for performance, like ducts in the front and back to feed air to help cool the brakes, a small rear spoiler for which Chrysler claims increases rear downforce by 39%, and large 20x9-inch forged aluminum wheels with staggered tires. The interior continues on with a mix of style, purpose, and lots of room. The dash is clean and functional, with the Chrysler analog clock, some vents, and a screen followed by dual climate controls. In the instrument cluster, there are 4 round gauges with black lettering and needles, and a white background. There are black leather seats with suede inserts on the SRT8, along with the SRT logo that is embroidered on the seat backs. These seats have pretty decent bolsters and are quite comfortable, and they have a higher seating position of 2.5 inches. The SRT8 gets all the bells and whistles, of course, like adjustable pedals and steering wheel, a leather-wrapped 4-spoke steering wheel, and more reduction of interior and wind noise. As for the space, rear legroom is 40 inches, while the trunk can hold 15.6 cubic feet. Performance is one of the major reasons why anybody buys an SRT8 vehicle, and this 300 doesn't fail to deliver. The first iteration had the 6.1-liter V8 Hemi that made 425 horsepower and 420 pound-feet of torque, paired with a 5-speed automatic. Even with a weight of around 4,200 pounds, the SRT8 does 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds, the quarter mile in 13 seconds, and it can hit a top speed of 173 miles per hour. The 300 SRT8 even drew performance comparisons to some other pricier cars, such as the Mercedes-Benz E55 AMG and the Cadillac CTS-V, And for the price, it was arguably the better buy. On screen you can see some comparisons between those three vehicles. As I mentioned earlier, there are 20-inch wheels with 245/45/20 front Goodyear Eagle F1 supercar tires, and there's wider 255/45/20s in the rear. Beneath the wheels are 4-piston Brembo calipers with 14.2-inch front rotors and 13.8-inch rear rotors. This allows the heavy sedan to stop from 70 to 0 miles per hour in just 162 feet. Another thing, gas mileage was rated at 13 city, 18 highway, and 15 mpg combined. Overall, there wasn't much to not like. Performance that put many expensive sports cars to shame, a nice base price, loud exhaust tone when you stepped on the gas, great brakes, and room for 5 passengers. The only major critiques on this car were the somewhat cheap materials used on the interior, some visibility troubles from the lower roofline and massive A-pillars, the predictable steering that lacked some feedback, and the fairly harsh suspension. One model that many of us forget about is the Chrysler 300C Touring model, which was the wagon version that Europe, Australia, and Japan received. These were built by Magna Steyr in Graz, Austria, sharing lots of sheet metal with the Dodge Magnum, and also used the wheels from the Charger and Magnum with Chrysler center caps instead. These were available from 2005 to 2010, with the SRT8 wagon released in 2006, available in both left and right-hand drive depending on the market. These SRT8 wagons were pretty much the same as the sedan, except they did weigh about 800 pounds more, coming in at a hefty 4,900 pounds. So that means a slower 0 to 60 time of 5.4 seconds, and a top speed of 165 miles per hour instead of 173 on the sedan. Before we move on to the second generation, I do want to look at the 300 and its various awards, along with its successes in pop culture. The 300C has had many accolades that you'll see on screen, pretty much immediately winning about 6 to 7 different awards. The designer of the car, Ralph Gilles, would also say, quote, "The 300 turned out to be a bit of an icon for Chrysler." End quote. On to the pop culture stuff. The 300C would be ranked number 12 by Complex in an article of the 25 most iconic hip-hop cars, since it was immensely popular in music videos at the time. Rapper Snoop Dogg even famously called the Chrysler CEO Dieter Zetsche, asking for his own 300 car, and would later appear in a commercial for it beside Lee Iacocca.
Nice ride.
Thank you, Mocha Coca. Chrysler and Jeep came up on Buku Awards, and Dodge trucks last as long as the Deagle Double Chisel.
BBC's Top Gear team over in UK called the 300C, quote, "something different with a bit of kitsch gangster cool," end quote, and called it the poor man's Bentley. Rapper Drake also referred to the car in his song Keep the Family Close on his Views album. Fast forward to 2011, and the next generation of the 300 was introduced with a redesign. Starting in 2011, the model was offered in Touring, Limited, 300C, and 300C all-wheel drive trim levels, and it was available again all over the world. There wasn't an SRT model in 2011, but it would come out for the 2012 model year, unveiled at the 2011 New York International Auto Show. This time around, the SRT8 pricing was around $47,000 to $48,000, while the much-forgotten SRT Core was more of a bargain in the $44,000 range. More on that SRT Core in a bit. Also, the pictures that you see on screen now of the darker 300 are of the SRT8 Core Australia version, so that one might look a bit different than all the other normal SRT8 pictures. The Core models ended up being pretty rare, as only 775 of them were sold in 2013 and 2014 combined, with just 104 coming from the US. So the bulk of them were sold in Australia. Again, the SRT8 was meant as a cost-effective sports sedan alternative to the likes of the Cadillac CT-SV, some of the BMW M cars, and again the Mercedes-Benz AMG class. As for those exterior changes, the front of the 300 looks similar to the Chrysler 200 and Town & Country minivan, with a similar looking horizontally slotted front grille, headlights and front bumper, and the new Chrysler emblem. The new headlights here were bi-xenon HID projectors, with LED daytime running lights in the inner corners, while there were also new LED taillights as well. Chrysler has done well to slim this car down to look less chunky, but also more muscular at the same time. The SRT8 has the gloss black grille and headlight housing, large exhaust tips, dark 20-inch SRT8 wheels, deeper bumper panels, and a lip spoiler as well. The interior was also redone and looks great, and this time around the inside of the SRT8 is more distinguished from the other models in the lineup. Everything was redone, like the instrument panel, seat trims, center console, switches, and door panels and pockets. The SRT8 again gets suede and Nappa leather seats, along with carbon fiber trim. The leather-wrapped heated steering wheel that you see is unique to this model, with a flat bottom and 4-spoke design. Beneath the wheel are some paddle shifters as well. In the center stack, there is the 8.4-inch Uconnect touchscreen, which was revered as one of the best multimedia systems when it came out, and the SRT8 had some extra performance pages in there that you'll see on screen. Finally, the instrument panel has a very bright look this time around, with crisp graphics and ice blue accent lighting. Moving on to performance, like the rest of the SRTs from 2011 to 2014, the engine changed over to the 6.4-liter 392 Hemi V8 engine with 470 horsepower, 470 pound-feet of torque, which both add about 50 each over the previous SRT8. That's still paired with a 5-speed auto. Performance got even better too, with a 0 to 60 time of just 4.3 seconds, quarter mile in 12.7 seconds, and a top speed of 175 miles per hour. Again, the 300 SRT8 got 20x9-inch forged aluminum SRT wheels with 4-piston Brembo brakes and lowered adaptive damping suspension. Gas mileage on the 6.4 was 14 city, 23 highway, good for 17 mpg combined. Going back to that SRT core, on screen you can find the difference between that and the regular, or sometimes called the premium SRT8. Both come with the same engine, transmission, brakes, suspension, and instrument clusters. However, the premium does cost $4,000 more and adds a lot of nicer features like a better steering wheel, heated and ventilated front seats, HID lights, carbon fiber accents, the 8.4-inch Uconnect, and more. So as for 2015, the 300 SRT got a facelift with new features such as adaptive cruise control and forward collision warning, restyled front and rear fascia, new black and silver mesh chrome grille, and a better Uconnect system. The engine was the same 6.4 Hemi, but the transmission was upgraded to the ZF 8-speed automatic. The 2015 SRT 300 was available in over 16 countries, including Belarus, Angola, Australia, New Zealand, Brunei, Zimbabwe, Indonesia, Japan, South Korea, the Middle East, and South Africa. Only one problem: it wasn't available in the United States, Canada, or Mexico. So after months of waiting, FCA made the announcement that the 300 SRT was officially dead in North America. Many people found it really weird that FCA would get rid of the 300 in their hometown, but keep selling it abroad. In fact, some were actually manufactured in the Brampton plant in Canada, yet you can't actually go to the dealer to buy one. To this day in 2020, we still don't have the 300 SRT, even though the regular 300 models still live on. Both the SRT Core and the SRT are still available in several locations, like the Middle East and Australia. So that'll bring us to the next part of the video, looking at the reasoning for the cancellation and or the flaws of the 300 SRT8. So I've come up with 4 different reasons. Note that I'm not going to look at certain things like reliability, because that's not at all what killed the SRT8, and the 300 itself is still going. Let's have a look. So the first reason, more applicable than ever, is the extremely low 300 SRT8 sales for the United States. I have said it before and I will say it again, but this is the major reason why Chrysler didn't bring the car back to the United States. I see tons of comments all the time whenever I make a Chrysler video saying things like, oh, if Chrysler would keep the 300 SRT, the sales would only go up. If they put a 392 motor or a Hellcat in the 300, they would sell more. Or, sucks that people in the US want 300s with 6.4 and Hellcat engines, and they won't get them. These are all really good thoughts, but I don't think they're quite accurate, nor do I think the 300 SRT would work well, and let me explain why by looking at the previous sales of the 300 SRT8. As I'm talking here, I do have 3 different charts showing the sales totals of the SRT8. The first one is the US total and worldwide total for both generations. The next one will be one that breaks it down between USA, Canada, Mexico, and exported. And the other one will break it down by the type of SRT8 sold. So wagons, right-hand drive, different exports, the core models, and all that. And the total sales figures do include the 300C Touring SRT8 wagon, the SRT Core, as well as all the right-hand drive models and exports. So sales did start off very well for the first gen, and would peak in 2006, where there were over 11,000 SRT8 sold worldwide, including 9,185 for the US. The sales would continue into 2007, with over 4,300 of them sold. But for 2008 through to 2010, the sales started to decline in a big way, as Chrysler sold just 2,663 SRT8s, with only 1,073 of those coming from the US. But still, over that first gen, Chrysler sold over 18,000 SRT8s, and almost 13,000 of them from the United States, so that was enough for them to bring it back for Generation 2. If we take a look at the second gen, I wouldn't say the sales were awful for such a niche high-performance sedan, but they were alarmingly low for the US this time around. Sure, they were selling almost 3,000 per year for 2012 and 2013, but throughout the second generation, the US sales only totaled up to be 3,130, and by the last year in 2014, Chrysler had only sold 496 SRT8s in America. So that just wasn't enough demand for them to want to keep producing the SRT8, and they cancelled it without too many financial repercussions on their end. So again, while many of us car enthusiasts just love the idea of the 300 SRT models, they just simply don't sell very well. I do think it's one of the coolest cars out there, and I will say that it might be possible that if Chrysler reintroduces a 300 SRT back to the US market now, after about 6 years without one, that it could rejuvenate that car. But at the end of 2014, their decision to cancel it was mainly about low sales and the fact that very few people wanted to buy them. In fact, from 2015 to 2018, there's only been 1,488 SRT300s sold worldwide, so it really isn't selling well anywhere on Earth right now. FCA spokespeople have also said that another major reason why the 300 SRT was cut is because FCA had intentions to reposition Dodge as their performance division in their 2013 5-year plan, helped by reabsorbing SRT back into that brand. So with SRT shifting back to a Dodge focus, the 300 SRT didn't quite fit the brand strategy of Chrysler. FCA CEO at the time, Sergio Marchionne, began referring to Chrysler as a people mover brand, and they had the 200 and 300 sedans and the Town & Country minivan in their lineup. If we take a look at the Chrysler 5-year outlook plan in 2013, you can see that Chrysler was focusing more on sedans, crossovers, minivans, and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. It really didn't make sense for Chrysler to keep injecting the powerful and beastly 300 SRT8 into that lineup when those vehicles were better suited for Dodge, and that decision was made even easier when they weren't selling more than a few hundred per year anyways. The third reason was that the 300 SRT just couldn't stack up to where Dodge was going. In 2015, they just released their Hellcats with 707 horsepower, so of course they didn't want the 300 SRT alongside those, with its measly 470 horsepower. And as we've been over, the Hellcat 300 wouldn't quite fit the Chrysler brand positioning either. It just couldn't compete with those cars, which took up all the attention and sales. People who wanted that level of performance and luxury, costing over $50,000, would usually pick up something else from the likes of Mercedes, Audi, and BMW, while those who wanted performance would almost always pick up the Charger or Challenger, which offered many versions by 2015 like Scat Packs, SRT 392s, and Hellcats. If you ask me personally if I wanted 707 horsepower in a Charger, Challenger, or 300, I would probably pick one of the first two because they do look cooler and are more of a muscle car, and I'm sure that many of you would feel the same way. On screen you can see some quotes from Autoblog after they reviewed the 2012 300 SRT8, and they kind of echo what I'm saying in that if you have a car with power like that, many people would rather have the muscle car twins from Dodge, and they are definitely seeming more appropriate. So this last reason is similar to the third, but it does focus more specifically on the Dodge Charger. The two full-size sedans, Charger and 300, both appeal to two different segments, as the Charger was more of a muscle car geared towards performance, while the 300 was less aggressive, as I've said, an understated performance car with a luxury feel. But at the end of the day, the two were mechanically identical, and they shared almost everything other than the looks. Chrysler wanted to get rid of the redundancies in their lineup, and unfortunately for those who love the 300 SRT, everything that actually made that car so great was also available in the Dodge Charger SRT models, and then some, for example the Hellcat engine. So there was no point in basically having the same car twice in every Chrysler showroom, as it just created competition between the Charger and 300 SRT models. Those who really wanted the 300 SRT might have left the dealership and gone to another brand, but most would have just been happy with a Charger instead. So to sum it up, a different brand strategy, low sales, declining popularity, and closely related models in the same showroom would basically force the 300 SRT out of this part of the world. So that's the end of this video, guys. It was a great trip down memory lane, researching and going this in depth on the 300 SRT8 models, and they are just awesome cars at the end of the day. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed it. What do you think about the 300 SRT8? Did you ever own one, or do you have one now? Let me know in the comments section below. Make sure to like and subscribe for more Mopar content, and I'll see you in the next video.